Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 28th of February 2026. Blazing barrage. The US and Israel strike Iran, prompting a barrage of Iranian missile strikes across the Middle East.
Oh my God! Missile threat warning.
Sri Lankan Airlines and Wizz suspend flights over regional airspace closures. Stranger danger. 4 arrested with narcotics valued at nearly 500 million rupees. More than 7,000 children arrested over drug use in 2024. Coal call. No intention to invalidate subpar coal procurement tender reveals the opposition. Government vows to recuperate losses through legal infrastructure already in place. Salai saga. Retired Major General Suresh Salai to be detained for 90 days.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, your top story tonight, the United States and Israel launched massive joint military strikes on multiple Iranian cities today, prompting swift retaliation from Tehran with missile attacks across the region. As air raid sirens sounded in Israel and several US military bases in the Middle East were targeted, regional airspace closures triggered widespread disruption. In response to the escalating tensions, Sri Lankan Airlines and Wizz have temporarily suspended flights on affected routes, while authorities urge passengers to verify travel plans.
Following his re-election for a second term last year, US President Donald Trump presented Iran with proposals aimed at a nuclear deal. However, these proposals were rejected by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and his government. In June 2025, Israel and Iran engaged in a direct confrontation that became known as the 12-Day War. The conflict began with Israel and US airstrikes targeting Tehran's nuclear and missile infrastructure. Iran responded with missile barrages towards Israel and US forces deployed in the region. Ballistic missiles and airstrikes were among the destructive blows traded by the nations at war for over nearly 2 weeks. A US brokered ceasefire helped end active combat by late June. Following the ceasefire, Western powers, including the United States, pushed for renewed negotiations aimed at limiting Tehran's nuclear program and ballistic capabilities in exchange for economic sanctions relief. New indirect nuclear talks between the United States and Iran began on 6 February 2026, mediated by Oman, with subsequent rounds held on the 17th and 26th of February in Geneva, Switzerland. These talks took place under the looming threat of military strikes as 2 US aircraft carrier strike groups and more than 100 fighter jets were on standby in the Middle East, marking one of the largest US military buildups in the region in decades. On February 19th, President Trump warned of severe consequences if no agreement was reached within 10 to 15 days. After the third round of negotiations, the US president said he was not satisfied with Iran's conduct but had not yet decided whether to authorize a military strike. Within 24 hours of the third Geneva talks, today the US and Israel launched massive missile strikes on 5 Iranian cities, including Tehran, in a joint operation named Roaring Lion. A girls' elementary school in the southern Iranian city of Minab was directly struck during the attacks, killing at least 50 and injuring several others. The Associated Press reported that attacks targeted Iranian president and the office of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader. However, Iranian authorities revealed that President Pezeshkian has not been injured by the attacks, while Reuters reported that Supreme Leader Khamenei has been relocated to a secure facility outside of Tehran over safety concerns. In remarks following the attacks, Trump pledged to annihilate Iran's navy and missile sites and urged Iranians to overthrow their government.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal, but Iran refused. They rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to annihilate their navy, and we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Following the attacks, Israel declared a state of emergency. Airspace closures were implemented in Iran, Israel, Iraq and Qatar, with a total of 7 Middle Eastern countries taking similar precautions. Iran's leadership vowed a crushing response, warning that Israeli and US military bases were legitimate targets. Missiles were launched towards northern Israel, triggering air raid sirens and explosions in areas such as Haifa and the Galilee. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said the Al-Ludeid Air Base in Qatar, Al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait, Al-Dafra Air Base in the UAE and the US Naval Base in Bahrain were targeted. Muwafaq Al-Said Air Base in Jordan was also targeted, according to Iranian state media, as well as a US Air Base in northern Iraq. Several missiles fired at the United Arab Emirates were intercepted by air defense systems. Some missiles debris fell in a residential area and killed 1 civilian, according to the UAE's official news agency. Meanwhile, 4 people were killed and several others wounded when an Iranian missile struck a building in the southern Syrian city of Sweda. International governments, including the US, the UK and Canada, warned citizens to avoid travel to Iran and the wider Middle East. Chairing an emergency response meeting following the attacks, British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer stated that Iran must never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry condemned the US-Israeli strikes on Iran, demanding an immediate halt to the military campaign and a return to diplomacy. In light of the current security situation in the region, Sri Lankan ambassador to Israel Nimal Bandara urged all Sri Lankans in Israel to exercise utmost caution and to adhere strictly to the security guidelines issued by the Israeli security authorities. In case of emergency or for assistance, Sri Lankans may contact the Sri Lankan embassy in Tel Aviv through the 24-hour emergency contact line by dialing +972 55 930 5731. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment states that its emergency operation unit can be contacted via hotline 1989 and on WhatsApp through +94 719 802 822. In the meantime, Sri Lankan Airlines and Fitz Air have temporarily suspended flights to destinations affected by the restricted airspace. The Civil Aviation Authority has advised passengers to verify flight details with their airline or travel agent before arriving at the airport. A special program is underway to facilitate passengers and aircraft touching down or taking off from Sri Lanka. The Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport is prepared to accommodate diverted flights if necessary. The public is urged not to be unduly concerned about the situation. In the meantime, the president of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Janaka Rajakaruna, has urged the public not to be unduly concerned about a potential fuel shortage arising from Middle Eastern tensions, assuring that current oil stocks are sufficient to last the country for over a month. Speaking to Ada Derana, he stated that there are adequate supplies of petrol, autodiesel and aviation fuel. He further reassured that even in the event of a closure of the Strait of Hormuz, there would be no immediate cause for concern as the majority of Sri Lanka's oil imports do not originate from the Middle Eastern region.
Central Finance Youth
Now in other local news, 4 individuals, including a former army intelligence officer, were arrested by Ahungalla police with narcotics worth nearly 500 million rupees. Investigations further revealed that the narcotics were brought into the country by the notorious underworld figure Karandiniya Sudha.
An individual was arrested by the Ahungalla police yesterday in Balapitiya with over 1 kilogram of crystal methamphetamine in his possession. The arrest was made during a raid conducted following a tip-off received by the Ahungalla police. Upon further interrogation of the suspect, police recovered 6 kilograms and 368 grams of crystal methamphetamine and over 7 kilograms and 472 grams of heroin from a female at a house in the Ambalangud area. Police also stated that 30 rounds of 9mm live ammunition and 30 rounds of 3.8mm live ammunition were found in her possession. Subsequently, another individual who arrived at the time to collect narcotics from the female suspect was also arrested on the spot. Upon inspection, the police found 6 kilograms and 640 grams of heroin and 6 kilograms and 664 grams of crystal methamphetamine in the possession of the suspect arrested on the spot. Police claim that the estimated value of the relevant consignment of narcotics is close to 500 million rupees. Meanwhile, a person who allegedly aided the drug trafficking operation has also been arrested. Police identified him as a former army intelligence officer. During interrogations, it was revealed that the relevant narcotic shipment was consigned to the country by notorious underworld figure Karandiniya Sudha. The police suspect that the former army intelligence officer is responsible for distributing Karandiniya Sudha's firearms and ammunition. The arrestees were produced before the Balapitiya Magistrates Court, where the authorities were granted permission to detain the suspects until March 5th. Further investigations are being carried out by the Ahungala police.
Ashoka Dharmasena, the Deputy Inspector General of Police supervising the Police Narcotics Bureau, claims that a total of 7,950 children under the age of 21 were arrested in 2024 over addiction to heroin and crystal methamphetamine. He made this statement at a press conference held to raise awareness on Drug Prevention Week, which begins tomorrow.
A Nation
United, the national anti-narcotic initiative that commenced on October 30th last year, has so far led to the seizure of a total of 542 kilograms of heroin, 1,434 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine, and a significant quantity of narcotic pills. However, a major concern now is drug addiction among children. In 2024, 7,950 children under the age of 21, including dropouts and active school students, were reported to be involved. This year, 2,257 children were arrested for using heroin and crystal methamphetamine. Among the arrestees, approximately 200 were girls.
පුනරුත්ථාපනය කරලා මාජයට මුදා හැරපු පිරිස නැවතත් මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය වලට ඇබ්බැහිවීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය විදිහට ගත්තොත් කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් නැවත මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය පාලනය කරනවද නැත්නම්
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 130ක් 35ක් අතර ප්‍රමාණයක් තමයි සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම එයින් මෙදිලා තිබෙන්නේ.
පාසල් ළමුන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ?
අඩුම වයස අවුරුදු 9 වගේ වයස් කාණ්ඩයේ දරුවනුත් උතන පුනරුත්ථාපනය වෙනවා.
ගිය අවුරුද්ද ගත්තහම අවුරුදු 5-14
Under the category of cannabis consumption by minors between 5 to 14 years of age, one arrest was made last year. Addiction often starts with cannabis, cigarettes, or intoxicants used in Ayurvedic medicine. A significant number of arrests were made during the weekends, often due to tuition classes. Special attention must be given to international schools as there is an increasing trend of crystal methamphetamine use among students. Crystal methamphetamine is a synthetic drug made from chemicals. A single use can trigger a strong urge to continue consumption. Recovery is extremely difficult once an individual becomes addicted. To date, more than 4,800 complaints have been received through our hotline 1818. These complaints concern individuals who sell narcotics to children near schools. These dealers disguise themselves as street vendors and entice children to consume intoxicants. Separate raids are underway to tackle this issue by the Narcotics Bureau with the assistance of civil officers.
අපි වෙනම වැටලීම් කරනවා මන්ත්‍රව්‍ය කාර්යාංශයේ සිවිල් නිලධාරීන් දාලා.
0.76යි 96යි 27යි 761 අංකයට අමතන්න මේ මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය වලින් ගැලවෙන්න කැමති වෙන පුද්ගලයෝ ඉන්නවා නම් ඒට අපේ පුනරුත්ථාපන මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ ඒගොල්ලන්ව යොමු කරන්න.
දිවයිනේ ප්‍රථමයෙන් අටක් දායද කළ සන්නාමය බණ්ඩාර තිසානායක ඉකොන් BS මුළු දිවයිනටම online.
Now, the Lanka Coal Company announced a tender for the urgent procurement of 300,000 metric tons of coal for the Narochole coal power plant. According to the official notice posted on the company's website, the emergency coal purchase is scheduled to cover the period from March to April this year. Amid growing public concern over the importation of substandard coal to the country, the Lanka Coal Company published a notice online revealing plans to conduct an emergency coal procurement. The notice, dated February 25th, published on the company's official website, outlines plans to secure a substantial supply of coal to meet immediate energy demands. Accordingly, arrangements are underway to procure 300,000 metric tons of coal to ensure the uninterrupted operation of the Noracholi coal power plant from March to April this year. The government has decided to import 5 shipments or 300,000 tons of coal under emergency procurement protocols. What this indicates is that the government will not invalidate the tender offered to the company that imported substandard coal. The notice of emergency procurement, however, shows that the government has begun to confront the ground reality despite what its rhetoric may be. Electricity consumers will definitely have to bear these costs at the end of the day. Consumers will then see who was honest and who was dishonest. Everybody will have to face higher tariffs, notwithstanding the fact that they voted for the NPP or otherwise.
We all know
what Nalinda Jayatissa usually utters. Minister Jayatissa must first reveal why the CEB hiked the price of a kilo of coal by 10 rupees more than its import price. This price hike was communicated to the Public Utilities Commission by the CEB through its latest tariff revision proposal. If there was a loss incurred, there is a procedure to recuperate the loss. The company in question has deposited $15 million with us. We can charge fines from all coal shipments. We have already levied a fine worth $2.06 million against the first shipment, which is twice the cost of the shipment. The remaining shipments will also be levied fines ranging between $500,000 to $700,000. This is the process. This is nothing new. This, in fact, is what happened in the past as well. Reports concerning 9 shipments were released. All 9 shipments were failures. We have been informed that the 10th and 11th shipments are on the way. The Lanka Coal Company has still not issued a termination notice. Instead, it sends reminder emails. We fail to comprehend why the Lanka Coal Company coddles the importer this much. The general public must stand against the government if it decides to hike tariffs to cover up the loss incurred over this issue.
This
scam will cause a loss exceeding 20 billion rupees. The government must take responsibility. Previously, corruption centered around the Rajapaksa family. Now corruption centers around a cabal of capitalist businessmen. I explained this fact at many rallies citing examples, but the people refused to take my word for it. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa alleges that the 10th coal shipment imported for power generation is also substandard, citing reports from the Ceylon Electricity Board and the Public Utilities Commission. He warns of a significant power shortfall and questions that what action the government will take as the public continues to bear the cost. We reiterated that the coal shipments being imported were substandard. Now we can state that the 10th coal shipment is also substandard. This revelation is based on reports from the System Control Unit, the Ceylon Electricity Board and the Public Utilities Commission. 300 megawatts of energy were expected to be generated from the first unit using coal from the first shipment. However, only 263 megawatts were produced. What measures will the government take to resolve this issue? There is a shortfall of 62 megawatts. Simply put, the fuel mafia appears to be benefiting from this situation. The public remains vulnerable. The government must be held responsible. Welcome back. Now, a detention order has been issued to detain and question former head of the State Intelligence Service, retired Major General Suresh Salai, over investigations into the Easter Sunday attacks. This follows the expiration of a previous 72-hour detention order that was concluded earlier today. On the 25th of this month, the Criminal Investigation Department apprehended former head of the State Intelligence Service, Major General Suresh Salai, in connection with the ongoing investigations into the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings. The authorities obtained 72-hour detention orders to further interrogate him on the matter. The 72-hour period ended this morning. Thereafter, the CID has obtained a 90-day detention order to question the former chief of the State Intelligence Service. Against this backdrop, several public representatives commented on the recent arrest of retired Major General Suresh Salai. As a former army officer, he rendered a distinguished and a dedicated service to the nation. While we firmly uphold the position that those truly responsible for the Easter Sunday attacks must be punished and brought before the law, we also condemn the targeting of public sector officials without credible evidence or justifiable grounds. If Salai is to be held in detention for an extended period of time, one cannot help but recall the President's pledge to disclose the true architects of the Easter Sunday bombings before the 21st of April last year. Yet in the aftermath of that assurance, only Pillayan was taken into custody. Many believed that thorough investigations would ultimately expose the principal mastermind behind this atrocity. A full year has now elapsed since that arrest, and 7 years have passed since the Easter Sunday attacks shook the nation. Today, Salai has been apprehended and named as the alleged mastermind. Let this not descend into yet another cycle of uncertainty, where the question lingers as to who will be arrested next as the mastermind of the attacks. The arrests carried out by the CID are grounded in credible information uncovered through comprehensive investigations into the matter. Upon the completion of their detention period, the suspects will be duly produced before court in accordance with due process. Those who have consistently placed their trust in the country's judiciary may continue to do so at this juncture. They are likewise entitled to present any relevant information before the courts through the appropriate legal channels.
පාස්කු ඉරිදා ප්‍රහාරයට අදාළව මේ රටේ අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්තු එක මිනිහෙක්වත්
None of the individuals previously arrested in connection with the Easter Sunday attacks have revealed any ties to the State Intelligence Service. However, it seems that the CID officers are encouraging detainees to claim that Zaharan Hashim had spoken of links with Salai. What is this course of action? From what I understand, those currently in custody are deeply religious individuals who believe that falsehood would deny them spiritual salvation. As a result, they show little inclination to fabricate claims on the matter. Is the FBI not considered far more advanced than Shani's CID? The FBI prepared a comprehensive report on these attacks. Did that document contain any reference to connections with the State Intelligence Service or to Salai? It did not. Nor did the investigative reports compiled by foreign authorities make mention of such links. India issued a prior warning regarding the bombings, yet even that intelligence did not suggest any association with these parties. However, Shani's CID now claims to have uncovered matters that even Interpol did not. Azad Maulana, whose name has been cited, has not provided an official statement to the CID. An individual cannot be arrested solely on the basis of remarks made during a television interview. It was not the police media spokesperson who addressed the issue publicly, but Father Cyril Gamini, who called upon the public to remain patient. Yet patience is not the central concern here. When actions appear designed to appease elements of the diaspora, do they not risk undermining the credibility and stability of the country's intelligence services? How can one remain passive in the face of such potential erosion? If Maulana's statements to Channel 4 were made in pursuit of political patronage, how can arrests be justified on the strength of assertions aired on a foreign media outlet? Sarvajana Balaya leader parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira rebuffs the government's assertion of a mastermind having perpetrated the Easter Sunday attacks and instead disparaged it as a political football being played to further extend the government's public appeal. Jayavira also slammed the government for arresting retired Major General Suresh Salai, who according to him has been highly acclaimed by international law enforcement agencies for his stellar career.
The Sarvajana Sabha of Sembukatiya Chilla was officially established today at the Sembukatiya Sri Somarame temple under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya leader parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira.
The former State Intelligence Service Director has been arrested. He is being detained under detention orders as if he were a terrorist. Is the former intelligence chief such a dangerous terrorist? Is that why they have detained him for interrogations? The government's bankrupt intentions led to his detainment. Sri Lanka was plagued by a lot of catastrophic incidents. The Easter Sunday terror attacks happened to be some of the most sensitive among them. The Islamic community publicly acknowledged that the Muslim extremists perpetrated these attacks. However, the government continues to deviously perpetuate the myth of a mastermind having orchestrated the attacks, turning the issue into a political football. The government does this devious act to ensure its political longevity. American and Indian authorities have issued reports on the matter. However, an intelligence officer who was acclaimed by these nations for his service has been arrested to the embarrassment of the entire nation. Those reports extensively reveal how the attacks unfolded. The mastermind, so to speak, is not a real person but a mere political football. A representative of the UNFPA in Sri Lanka emphasizes building demographic resilience, ensuring every stage of life is supported while turning population challenges into opportunities. Speaking at the event, President of the Population Association of Sri Lanka, Professor Manuri Weeratunga, highlights the role of population health and data-driven governance, stressing the need for real-time health information and evidence-based policies to ensure longer, healthier and more productive lives for all Sri Lankans.
The annual population conference organised by the Population Association of Sri Lanka was held yesterday in Colombo.
The Ministry of Health, so they very confidently say Sri Lanka has achieved strong health outcome beyond what would be expected for a country at its income level, with significant gains in life expectancy and the successful elimination of several communicable diseases. What we really want is the healthy life expectancy. Living longer is not enough. People need to live healthier lives. The focus should shift from only increasing life expectancy to the improving healthy life expectancy. Preventive health behavior is still low in some population groups. Many people do not go for early disease screening. So what has happened? Young and middle-aged adults especially do not attend regular health checkup. This shows the need to strengthen health promotion throughout the life course. That is really important. We need to disseminate the data among the population to understand about their health situation. So what will happen? So then they can think about their health situation. So population health governance is very important. This requires continuous population health surveillance to regularly track health trends. Health information should be digitally integrated, so data from hospitals, clinics and communities are connected as a government to have a proper database. Using risk prediction and data analytics helps identify vulnerable groups early. Real-time policy monitoring allows the government to adjust health strategies quickly. Population health is not the responsibility of the health sector alone. It requires strong intersectoral approach that brings together education, urban planning, social welfare, labor policy, economic development and active community participation to build a healthier nation.
Today, Sri Lanka stands at a demographic turning point. We are navigating complex challenges of a rapidly aging society. The challenge is no longer about how many people we have, but how well we support the people we have. This population transformation and aging society should not be viewed as a crisis, but as a triumph of development. We need a new agreement as a society, one that supports people's health and well-being at every stage of life from birth to old age. Building demographic resilience in Sri Lanka means preparing for a future where declining youth enter the labor force, where there's increasing demand for elderly care, where migration patterns are transforming communities, and climate change is undermining income and livelihoods. While climate-induced disasters strike, as we saw with the recent impacts of Cyclone Jitwa, it is access to critical services such as maternal health and protection from violence that often hangs in the balance for women and girls. Demographic resilience means ensuring climate adaptation strategies, protection of women, adolescents, and older persons. Gender-responsive policies are not just a women's issue, they are an economic necessity. Young people must not only be beneficiaries of policies, but they must also be co-creators of solutions. Their skills, innovation, digital literacy, and potential will determine whether Sri Lanka thrives in this changing landscape. At UNFPA, we remain committed to supporting Sri Lanka in strengthening data systems, advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights, and developing forward-looking population policies. Success isn't about just numbers or charts, but it's about ensuring that every person in Sri Lanka can live with dignity, safety, and the power and right to make their own choices, and that we leave no one behind.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, former senior trade and development economist at the World Bank, Dr. Nihal Pitigala, highlights the importance of focusing on sustainability when conducting post-disaster residential reconstruction. Meanwhile, international economist Sherry Pitigala stresses on the importance of building sustainable, climate-resilient, cost-effective houses, leveraging traditional knowledge further developed through modern techniques and nature-based products.
The Centre for Party Analysis recently hosted a guest lecture on sustainable housing for a climate-smart future. The guest lecture, which was held as part of SEPA's Research, Reflection and Practices or RRP guest lecture series, featured former senior trade and development economist at the World Bank Dr. Nihal Pittigala and international economist Sherry Pittigala.
These events have a disproportionate impact on the poor. Now, Deto has starkly reminded us that, these people are already in debt. They already have limited scope for ability to cope up, and they are already in vulnerable areas. Expansion of the rural housing at the low cost, when they move back to areas, even if they're after resettlement, or if they know there's a climate-related impact that is the government is warning that they shouldn't be in this area, they are more likely to move to areas that encroach upon the natural land. That also has an effect of precipitating already bad impact that they are experiencing. Usually the response to something like DITWA and other resources is like a one-off project, one-off resettlement, reconstruction, often delivered in a one-off basis, almost like a project basis. The idea of sustainability has never been a feature of previous resettlement and reconstruction effort. As a result, what happens is most of these houses, not all of them, most of them return back to where it's already climate vulnerable, and that precipitates even further their exposure to climate change. At the same time, at the national level, the government are also tackling with the post-debt restructuring and recovery. Public finances are constrained, and the ability to respond immediately is hampered by resource limitations.
What if we could start doing things differently in Sri Lanka? If we can build houses that are sustainable, climate resilient, and cost effective, if we could leverage, there's a lot of traditional knowledge out there and built upon through modern techniques in nature-based products. What if we could not only build houses, but build livelihoods, build communities, improve, strengthen local economic development in the process? A lot of the conventional construction, even in outlying areas, contractors bring in labor from outside and don't necessarily use the local labor to build local houses. And what if we could do all this by crowding in more private sector investment that better leverages the very limited resources of both government and donors in order to multiply the impact? And there's a number of levers you can use to sort of strengthen both, these different functions. So that would be your structural change to be able to change the incentive environment, fill capacity, gaps within supply chains, etc., as well as to address some of the systemic challenges that underlie it, including behavior change through awareness building to households on the benefits of nature-based materials, changing power dynamics. One thing that, and then politics that people don't like to talk about, there are vested interests in the market for conventional materials, and we all know, that special interests have a huge impact on what laws get passed and etc. So being able to help move the needle on that by facilitating coalitions and building up ground level support, those kinds of things, to be able to change those dynamics to enable a new market, because it's really the creation of a new market that we're talking about, and enabling that to take off and then start to scale as the ecosystem strengthens over time.
Now, in some breaking news, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation announced its latest fuel price revision effective from tonight. A price of a litre of octane 92 petrol will be increased from 292 rupees to 293 rupees. Similarly, the price of a litre of Lanka auto diesel will be retailed at 281 rupees following an increase of 4 rupees, while the price of super diesel will be increased to 329 rupees. No changes will be made in octane 95 petrol and kerosene. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
From across the nation and around the world, this is Sri Lanka's #1 news source, Ada Derana.